Hi, I'm Mark Flynn. You may remember me from such YouTube videos titled The Best Sonic Design, the Sonic the Hedgehog reboot. No, not that one. And many other videos that have been released very infrequently over the past 3 years. I feel very compelled to make this video because my audience, if any of them still exist, probably think by this point that I'm dead. I'm very much alive and no longer bald, which to me is a positive. I've been really itching to get back to making videos after a long time feeling burnt out, but there's one thing that always hovers over me when I'm thinking of new ideas. When I look at the data and I see the videos that people are still watching, I always have to stop and think to myself, am I a Sonic the Hedgehog YouTuber? A disclaimer before we start this video isn't intended to be a big scoop or the biggest controversy ever. Sonic Team did not forcibly lock me in a basement whilst I meticulously analysed the colour of the belt buckle on Sonic the Hedgehog's shoe. No, they didn't do that. I hope this video is therapeutic for me, kind of allows me to move past this level of creative block, and does give the people who signed up for that Sonic content the kind of resolution that they deserve, because they signed up for that content and I haven't made it for a long time and I don't think I'm ever going to go back to making it. So with that in mind, these are the 3 key reasons that I stopped making Sonic the Hedgehog videos. Now, to start with, there was the repetitiveness of the YouTube grind. The first thing with YouTube itself.
Oh, you mean old characters at YouTube giving me a platform to actually make money doing creative stuff rather than just shunned and ignored by every creative job I've applied for.
Oh wait, that was actually quite unexpected actually. Thank you YouTube for once. Most people probably know by this point that YouTube will categorize a lot of your videos and a lot of your audience will tend to enjoy watching the same topics on your channel. That is what they signed up for ultimately, and the algorithm will serve them up that same style of content ad nauseum. They want to keep people on the platform watching stuff, so it makes perfect sense. There are a lot of channels that do this specifically with Sonic, and they do it incredibly well. And they have the viewership to prove it, the subscriber counts, but for me personally, I just couldn't do it without feeling like I was going insane. I felt like I had begun to do that despite not even doing it that much. Again, not a dig at those YouTubers who do it, it's just not something I feel I could do. The first Sonic video I ever made was the best Sonic design, and it was the first character design video I'd ever made. My aim was to make this a series about characters across games in general, and I was really excited about making a little fictional art studio where I'd talk about this type of stuff in character in a similar vein to a YouTube personality like, I don't know, the angry video game nerd, but talking specifically about design and art. It was really easy to do this about Sonic specifically because he'd always kind of been a hyper-focused character that I'd loved since childhood, and it was a topic I knew a lot about, so it made a lot of sense to just focus on him for this first episode. I really liked the idea of having a series that I could come back to and do this with different characters, a series in the vein of other YouTubers I'd watched, and by and large, I think I did succeed with this. However, some of the best design episodes wouldn't perform as well as I'd hoped from the offset, which led to me going back to Sonic and other characters from the franchise more frequently than I wanted to. It was quite frankly easier, and Sonic as a search term was very clearly there in my analytics, so I felt like I'd be stupid not to do that. So in chasing financial success, I was putting out a lot of stuff that felt very by the numbers and not captivating at all to make. So you have a slight lack of enthusiasm for the best design series in general, because I'd been making that series for years and it's quite long-winded and taxing to make, followed by an extra layer of Sonic fatigue within the same series. Did I mention I just found out I'm autistic and also have ADHD? I think that really contributed to really not being able to find enjoyment in the writing when my heart just wasn't in it anymore. So I'd often lean on Sonic videos when I was doing this, and I think I could have doubled down on it further and actually made a lot of money and grown the channel rapidly if I'd wanted to. But creatively, I could just never commit to some of these ideas because I wasn't interested in them. I'd start working on a video titled The Best Sonic Design I Forgot and immediately not feel up to the task. I'd worked on a Christmas Sonic the Hedgehog designs video and I felt like I crunched myself to try and make something that fit the mold that I thought my channel should be. And I just thought, what next? Sonic's trainers throughout the generations, probably quite a sick video that. The Sonic swimsuit calendar, probably less likely to make that one, unless things get quite desperate. I'll make all of those next year, I'm sure. I'm joking. Please accept that I'm joking. However, there was one big idea I came up with for Sonic that I was happy to put a lot of my motivation behind. The Sonic reboot video. One of my biggest undertakings on YouTube was coming up with a pitch video for my own Sonic the Hedgehog reboot. And this was done in collaboration with the members of my Discord server. It was a bigger video than what I'd usually put together, incorporating more motion graphics, animations, artwork, and it required the coordination of a lot more moving parts. It was also a project I did whilst close to burning out already, as I had my first ever full-time video job at the same time, which wasn't the case when I first started out on YouTube. Back when I started, YouTube was the creative outlet video job that was the escape from the boring day-to-day. This was the middle of the pandemic by comparison, where I'd log off my full-time video job at the end of the day, then continue to sit at that same desk to make a Sonic the Hedgehog video throughout the evening or weekend. Naturally, finding the motivation was sometimes hard. I didn't know I had ADHD at the time, and I think by the end of making that specific video, I'd kind of had enough, completely. After it was over, there were a lot of comments on the video to thread through. But naturally, after spending an obsessive amount of time on a video like this, you tend to really only notice the ones that are more negative. I'm just gonna let this car go past. It's taking its sweet time. After it was over, there were a lot of comments on it to thread through. But naturally, after spending an obsessive amount of time working on a video like this, you tend to really only notice the ones that are more negative. There were a fair amount of comments saying things along the line of, "This doesn't work, you could never make a sequel to this, the Sonic franchise would die if Sega did this," said all with quite passionate writing. These kind of comments baited me into feeling like I needed to make a part 2 that my heart honestly wasn't really in, and it burnt me out even further as I did this just after finishing the previous long video. I should have just ignored them. That is probably the biggest lesson of the internet I would probably give to anyone. Don't argue on the internet, it is pointless. To this day, I still get comments on the Sonic reboot video, and honestly I'm flattered by it. Especially now I've had such a long time to distance myself from it. It's 5 years old and it is a clumsy video, but it was a passion project overall. I really didn't put enough thought into how the gameplay would work, but I still think the idea was really strong, and I'm glad it resonated with so many people. I was unbelievably lucky to receive such amazing contributions from the Sonic community members that joined my Discord and were involved in it. However, speaking of the community, knowing what video inspired that video, I made a serious effort to frame it in such a way that it would be almost impossible to get annoyed by. I thought it was very important to do this, as let's just say, the Sonic community has acted pretty immaturely to the video that inspired it in the past. So I will say, out of however many years on YouTube, this was the one video that I've had a dedicated hate video made about. Yep, that was the only one, and it's about a cartoon hedgehog. I'm 35 years old. I'm too old for this shit. Even though that video about me has now thankfully been taken down, I think the creator hopefully probably saw the error of their ways, and there was, quite frankly, a nice level of defense of me and the video in the comments. If you did see that video, you did probably see how miserable and bad faith it kind of actually was. It undeniably made me look at the negative of the franchise's fan base and just made me feel like, I don't want to be involved in this anymore. Which is a shame because the video was such like a cool undertaking and project, but to kind of have that as a resolution of it is a little bit of a bummer. But when you see your name attached to a hate video, which did have a fair amount of views on it, you do kind of look at it and you're like, ugh, this isn't what I signed up for. So I feel like bad faith content is all over YouTube gaming anyway. And as someone who does care about the quality of stuff, it's a big bummer in general to end a project like that. So finally, and perhaps the biggest reason of all, is just the state of the franchise at the moment. I think Sonic nostalgia peaked for me thrice in my adult life. The first was when Generations released in 2011, and the second was when Mania released in 2017. This reached its absolute peak in 2020 with the movie when I was first covering it. Covering the Sonic movie was a super important period of time for me and the channel, and I feel like as a result I was getting really strong viewership at the time. However, covering it became more and more frustrating. I know I'm not alone in experiencing this, and I know it's not a Sega specific thing either. It was probably more on the Paramount end, but I was relentlessly hit with copyright takedowns when making any videos on the movie. Repeatedly having to remake and republish things, lose out on revenue. It was a really quick way to lose interest in doing something. And I do feel like I was quite a big voice for the Sonic movie at the time, so it kind of stung a little bit harder. It was also the first time I was chasing a news cycle to be the first to talk about something, and it's just not a fun way to make content, to be honest. I don't know how anyone can work like that. It is just not enjoyable for me personally. I like kind of getting into deeper topics or just not feeling like I'm on someone else's schedule. So when it came to Sonic 2, I couldn't really be bothered anymore. I'd really got into my full-time job at the time and was just too tired to bother covering it, and when I finally did review it, I was struck by copyright almost immediately, just for using trailer footage. Regarding the games themselves, they've not been particularly exciting for me for some time. Frontiers was fun, but I think it's such a flawed game, and honestly, I found the community reaction to a lot of stuff surrounding it, from attacking specific negative reviewers who didn't like it, to the whole Game Awards debacle fighting the Genshin Impact fans, just to be a little bit cringe, to be completely honest with you. Is cringe still the term that kids use? Good. I had a review for Frontiers and ended up not wanting to even be truthful about my opinions, to be honest, as I had seen other Sonic YouTubers go after reviewers for having less than favourable opinions of it. Again, it was just something where I was like, man, I don't really want to be associated with the community at this point. And it's a bummer, because not everyone is like this, and it can apply to so many franchises in general, but it's just how I felt at the time. Personally, I thought the game was fine, but just didn't feel like it had a particularly original soul, and it does feel like Sonic Team often do wear their inspirations too obviously on their sleeves in these games. Now, I will say, for those who do want to know my opinions, I saw Sonic 3 and as a result did play Shadow Generations, because I did very much get lost in the hype. Honestly, I thought both were great, but I'm now at the point where I think I've kind of seen enough of these movies, and the games are good, but just not something that is meaty enough for me to really get into. So I've got my fill from them now, and Shadow Generations was very strong. It's probably my favourite 3D Sonic game, especially in the recent day. But again, it just isn't very interesting to me. It's a re-release expansion of a game that's 10 plus years old, yet still feels a lot better than most recent big Sonic releases. I definitely would recommend playing it though if you've been on the fence, or if you're even a casual Sonic fan or not a fan at all. It's a great game. Ultimately though, I just think that Sonic Team doesn't mess with the IP in an interesting enough way anymore. Dropping the same Sonic into slightly different genres of games isn't very compelling to me. Neither of the sports games or the Fall Guys clones, regardless of their quality. I can see myself playing Sonic Racing at some point, but hopefully you know what I mean. It's not what I want from the franchise, so it just feels like a money generating activity. So in conclusion, I did kind of ruin the franchise from myself from the get-go. If you want to lose all passion for a franchise, hyper-focus on it with all your strength and try and make a career out of it. YouTube can make that possible for you, but you'll really have to double down on it. I don't think this is really anything new that I'm saying, but I do really want to say it just in case you do have the opportunity to do something like this, because I kind of don't like Sonic very much anymore, and I think this is a huge part of it. Now, Sonic as a franchise, I'd say, has actually had quite a lot of good stuff come out over the past few years. I'd say the franchise is actually in a great place, but a lot of it feels not directed at me anymore, and what I ultimately want from it. That makes perfect sense, because they aren't going to direct something at me when they ultimately want to focus on a broader and younger demographic, or those who simply do want more of the same, and there's nothing wrong with that. What I was hoping for was that Sonic might take more creative liberties itself and create maybe a more serious project that could be enjoyed by those nostalgic from their childhoods whilst doing something new. It would be a big talking point for the franchise and wouldn't take away from the previous games. Some might argue they tried this with Frontiers, but to me that is just the same character and presentation dumped into an ill-fitting world and world map with nothing changed at the core. It even tried to tie together all the lore from the games. So I'd say they doubled down to try and make this fit the mold. I think Sonic Team has no issue pandering to nostalgia when profit is involved, but they are very scared about disrupting the status quo. And it just makes for something that feels very stale, and I can't feign interest in talking about it. If you dig all this stuff, all the power to you. None of this is intended as an insult, but I just can't fake interest in it anymore. The freshest thing Sonic has had in a game to me over the past half decade is a semi-realistic looking Shadow DLC based on a movie tie-in, because it actually looked like something different. There are countless fan projects still that look incredible. I'm going to throw some up on the screen now, and these are things I do find interesting. And I'm baffled that there still haven't been any official directed games in the same vein as these. How can something that looks so passionate to fans look so dry and uninteresting to the people in charge of it? Of course, I'm not ruling out ever covering Sonic the Hedgehog on this channel again, but I'm going to be really blunt. Sonic Team needs to do something that is really worth covering. So thank you for watching. I do hope to be back soon with more videos, so do subscribe if you'd like to see more. I'm sorry if this has felt like a negative video. It's not intended to be one. It's more of a warning of what can happen if you feel like you need to cover everything from a franchise, and how sometimes you just can move on from a series when you don't enjoy it much anymore. Personally, I hope that Sega announces out of nowhere the coolest ever looking Sonic game, and I can immediately go back on my word and make a video about it. But yeah, I just wanted to add some context of why I don't really do this much anymore, and probably this video is more for me than it is for anyone else. But thank you for watching, and hopefully I'll see you very, very soon.